welcome to the season finale of Dead Last, celebrating our first year of this show and a full 12 months of ranking horror franchises from the best to Dead Last. And for this episode, we're doing things a little differently. On this show, we're ranking all of the films from this season that have been voted the worst and putting them up against each other, finding this year's Dead Last. So, as always, I've asked for rankings from my patrons, and I have a very different kind of a panel, because with me today, after a short break from the show, is Derek from Shindig Radio and HalloweenShindig.com. Welcome back, Derek.
Thank you, Josh. Good to be back, and I think it's appropriate because I am your viewers' Dead Last panelist, so I think that works well to have me here on this episode. Good to be here, though.
So Derek and I will be with you guys the whole time. We're going to be going through this whole list, but each entry is going to have a few guests popping in and out, and you're going to see some new faces and some new familiar faces, and it's going to be pretty good. And for this episode, also, I've opened up the rankings to anyone that wanted to send them in. So we've got 71 rankings in total. And that means that the best score that a film could have, the best, is 71 points, and that the worst possible score that a movie could have, if every single person rated it Dead Last, it would be 852 points. So, that's a lot of points. Also,
yeah.
I know. Also, on this episode, the other thing we're doing very differently for the season finale is we are starting with the number one movie, and we are counting down, making our way to the Dead Last. So, without further ado, we're going to get on to the list. And, again, normally I'd be starting with the Dead Last, but here we're starting with number one. Our number one movie, with a mere 259 points, is Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday. That's right, our number one movie, the least worst of this bunch. It was ranked Dead Last on this list twice, but its highest ranking was first place, which it was ranked 22 times. 22 people gave this the top of the heap here. Derek, you and I both actually gave this second place, which was kind of cool.
I like Jason Goes to Hell. How is that even Dead Last? Being number one on this list I can live with that. I don't have a problem with that.
It's a fun, silly movie. I understand people not liking it because it's not really what you would expect from a Friday movie, and it is very different than your typical movie. But it has a lot going for it. I mean, it does have a really nice pacing. Things move along at an interesting pace. You've got some bizarre things happening, like full-on body melts and the bizarre body switching thing. But you also have a great lead. And I think he was a great character to have at the front of it, because you don't have your typical teen counselor. This is like an adult guy, like, facing down Jason, and it was kind of fun to see that kind of take on it. Plus, he does that handcuff jump, which I will never stop talking about how cool it is.
I agree. This is a weird Friday the 13th. In fact, it's the weirdest Friday the 13th. I think Jason X is probably more of a standard Friday the 13th film than Jason Goes to Hell. It's like that whole slasher formula, they just kind of threw it out the window, and it really just feels kind of like an odd early 90s horror movie, and I can see people not liking it because of that. I personally don't like Jason X because they transport him to space, which takes away what I love about the Friday the 13th franchise, but it still retains that formula. It just does so in space, whereas Jason Goes to Hell just takes it and throws that in the trash can. And if you don't like it because of that, then yeah, I get it. I understand. But Creighton Duke, so no.
Yeah. All right, and now for the opinion on this movie, we go now to someone that we haven't seen for a while. They've been absent from the past couple of episodes, but his return of Mikey, or maybe Mikey. Is that Mikey, or is that the man behind the mask?
Oh, my bad. Sorry about that. I was doing an OnlyFans.
How do you feel about it? It's actually ranked as number one on this list. So people like this one, more so than the others.
You know, I feel bad that I had to give it the ranking that I gave it when we ranked the Friday movies, but I just think it's got not enough of everything you want. So it has everything you want, but just not enough of it. You know, you have the gore. A lot of it was trimmed out of there. You know what I mean? Cool effects by Kane B. A lot of it trimmed out. You have your Kane Hodder Jason in one of the coolest Jason looks in the entire franchise, but just not enough of it because they're doing the body switch. You know, you've got all this random stuff, hell, weird hellscapes and Freddy connections and little weird parasitic Jason demon creatures, and you never get enough of that, right? It's just so nuts, but you just don't get enough of it. I don't know. I feel like if you do that Dead Last list, 9 times out of 10, you're not gonna get that as your Dead Last. It's kind of a surprise to me. You know what I mean?
And now, for a little bit more love for the film, we're actually going to one of the patrons who also has a fantastic YouTube channel called Hamburgers and Horror. We're going to check out Noah. Noah, what did you think of Jason Goes to Hell?
I had it as my number 2 best out of the worst movies here. I guess I'll get the bad stuff out of the way. It just added a ton of unnecessary new, like, Jason mythos that never existed before. So there's now suddenly a Voorhees house. There's the magical Voorhees sword and a whole bunch of other unnecessary stuff. But the reason I gave it my number 2 was it does have a lot of solid gore. Like, you have the coroner eating the heart. Ward gets his arm snapped really bad. That looks great. The lady who gets ripped in half, that's one of the best kills in the whole franchise. And when Jason is on screen, he does look really solid.
All right, moving us on to number 2. Our number 2 film with 313 points is Stephen King's Thinner, which was ranked dead last only one time. Its highest ranking was first place, which it got 10 times. 10 people had this as the top of their list here. Derek, you ranked this in 6th place, and I ranked it in 4th place. Thinner's okay. It's an enjoyable enough movie, and I think it being on this list is less of a slam on Thinner and more of a testament on how good the other movies on that ranking were, because it was up against The Shining and Carrie and all these great flicks, and then you've got Thinner, which is perfectly serviceable. It's fine. It's still kind of an enjoyable flick to watch. There's just not much to be mad at about in Thinner.
This Dead Last list, it's like 6 movies that I actually ranked dead last, and then 6 that I can't even believe were ranked dead last. And I think Thinner, I gave dead last on that Stephen King episode. And you're right, it's because it's up against The Dead Zone and Pet Sematary and Cujo, and even Firestarter is better than Thinner. But on this list, it looks a little bit better. Thinner's coming out head and shoulders above some of these other lists. I don't know about number 2. That's a little crazy to me. I think there's better movies on this list than Thinner, but I don't think people actually like those movies, as we're going to find out moving forward that things like Jaws 4 and Elves are not real fan favorites.
We're about to find out why this one ranked up a little bit higher, because next we're going to be talking to somebody that ranked it as their number 1. We've got Brennan coming back. Brennan is a patron and also did appear on our January Best of 2020 episode. Now, Brennan, you really liked this one.
I made a big mistake with my Stephen King list when I did it. I really, really enjoyed this one the second time around. It's not scary at all. It's not a horror movie. I might say it's thin on horror. I thought it was really funny. While the humor, a lot of it might be unintentional, very enjoyable compared to many of the films on this list.
And then our next guest, another patron that has appeared on the show previously, is Steven. Now, Steven, you had this ranked pretty highly as well, but I'm getting the feeling that you're not that crazy about it.
It's okay. When I saw that I was selected to talk to this, what am I going to say? I ranked it high not because it's good, but because it's watchable. And a lot of the movies on this Dead Last list aren't very watchable. I can put it on and I'll not be totally bored. Maybe that's damning praise. I don't think it's a good movie. It's not. If I were ranking like Stephen King adaptations, it would be towards the bottom. I didn't put it dead last on the Stephen King ranking, but again, that wasn't because I liked it. It was just there were ones that I liked less. I knew coming on here I wasn't going to have anything to say because I just don't think it's a very interesting movie.
Yeah.
It's an okay adaptation of an okay novel.
All right, moving on to our number 3 movie. It's weird saying these backwards. I feel like I should be starting it higher. Yeah.
But perhaps this is the way that the show should have been
I don't know.
formatted. I don't know. I always thought it was kind of weird that we went, because you want to know what the Dead Last movie is, right? That's the draw. Like, what's the worst one?
Yeah. I did a vote.
Maybe
I did a vote online, and people wanted it from worst to best. So that's the way we went.
Really?
Yep. Yeah. So I don't know.
Well,
so I
now
guess
it's
if everyone disagrees, maybe they can let us know. But
season 2 would change it up.
I know. Moving on to our number 3 movie at number 3 with 334 points, still kind of low on the points, is Saw 3D, which was ranked dead last one time, and its highest ranking was first place, which it got 8 times. You and I actually matched on this one, Derek. We both gave it 7th place, which not too terribly low, but not very high either. How'd you feel about Saw 3D?
Well, Saw was not an episode that you had me on, as you well know, because I have not seen really any of the Saw films, and I wasn't about to watch all of them just so I could be on that episode. Not a film series I care about at all. I saw the original when it came out. I was not interested or impressed by that. But I did watch Saw 3D for this particular roundup, and I don't know, it's fine, I guess. I don't really have other Saws to compare it to, but it looks like a made-for-TV cop drama. But there are some fun kills in there, which I guess is why you're watching any of these Saw movies, for his inventive, traps. And I mean, I can't think of another series where the last film is the best one. So here it is on a list of dead last movies, and maybe rightfully so. And I don't have too much to compare it to, like I said.
Because it's one of the only ones that doesn't take itself so seriously. It's actually a little sillier than normal. It feels a little bit more lighthearted than some of the Saw movies. I mean,
I was going to ask. It sort of, because, like I said, not real familiar with that series, but it feels almost like a parody. I was watching this movie. I was like, is this like a joke? I'm
never that mad at Saw 3D, but it's certainly not one I would just throw on for the hell of it. But now
you're getting some gore.
Yeah, well, some weird pink gore.
Yeah, why not?
Well, now for actually a little bit of worse opinion of it, we are going to another one of the patrons, actually a first time on the show. We have Rhett coming at us. Rhett, welcome to the show. And you actually had Saw 3D ranked pretty low on your ranking. You had it in 10th place, so this is one that you don't have a lot of love for.
I remember Wes Craven was talking about New Nightmare, and he was saying some of these franchises, the problem is it becomes the same thing over and over and over again. It's not really about, a story arc of the hero or the villain. It's just how the villain kills, and he was trying something new. And I felt Saw became like that. It's like, it's not about that. It's about the traps. And I felt that, 3D was coming out at that time, and it's like, oh, why don't we just put them in 3D? And it's just like the marketing pool is like, no, we don't need to see that. I thought it did like every other, after a while, Friday the 13th, Jason's just doing the kills and Freddy just doing the kills. And I felt Saw 3D fell into that. So,
but now on the opposite side of the spectrum, I have another patron, another brand new patron, very new to the Patreon, is Nick. Now, Nick, you had a much higher opinion of this one. Saw 3D was your number 1 for this list. So obviously you enjoy this one.
Yeah, so I had it at the top for me. I know that's not saying a whole lot with some of the other movies on this list. But I think the one thing that kept it above the other movies on this list is that it's not only entertaining, but it's competent. And then I know that's kind of a weird thing to say for a movie like this and a movie on this list. I had fun watching it. I love the Saw series in general. So even though it's not a good one in the series, it's still fun to watch. And I think this one kind of just felt a little more, not cheesy, but tongue in cheek. After some of the other ones like Saw 1 and 2, which are a lot more serious, this one just kind of seemed like it was like, screw it, we're going all in. Let's just make it nuts, make it crazy. And it almost kind of felt surreal at times. But yeah, overall, it was a fun movie. It wasn't anything special to write home about, but I definitely thought it was better made, and I had more of a fun time watching it than the other movies on this list.
All right, and now we come to our number 4 movie. At number 4, with 343 points, I guess it's appropriate that it's in 4th place because it's Jaws 4: The Revenge. But it was ranked dead last twice on this list, and its highest ranking was 1st place, which it got 11 times, which is kind of interesting because this is the movie that was ranked 1st place the 2nd highest amount of times. And you and I, Derek, both had this ranked fairly highly. You had it in 3rd place, but I actually had it, this was my first, and this was another one that on that list of movies that I was very, very upset that it was dead last, because Jaws 4 did not deserve to be dead last, because ultimately it's a terrible, terrible movie. I understand that it's really bad, but it's just so fun. It's one of those movies that is so bad that you can't help but laugh and enjoy it and giggle. There's so much ridiculousness in this movie that I can't comprehend how somebody wouldn't want to sit down and watch it.
When it comes to ranking any of these movies on this list, it very rarely does it come down, for me anyway, the quality of the picture. It's mostly, do I enjoy watching this? Did I enjoy watching this? Do I want to watch it again? Was I mad while I had to watch this movie? Yeah, Jaws 4 is not good. Jaws 4 makes Jaws 3 look like Jaws 2. Mara Van Peebles' accent is so ridiculous. This shark being in the Caribbean is ridiculous. The fact that Michael Caine is there is ridiculous. The fact that this shark is seemingly on a personal vendetta is very ridiculous. And for that alone, I mean, how can you not enjoy Jaws 4?
And in joining us for talking about Jaws are two guys that have been on previous episodes and previous panels before. But first up, we're going to go to Brawlin' Bo, who's been on at least 3 or 4 different episodes, and he's coming back for the season finale. Bo, tell us how you feel about Jaws: The Revenge.
Well, growing up watching the classic, Jaws was terrifying as a kid. I still, to this day, when I go in the ocean, which I love going to the beach, but I won't go past to where I can't touch because of Bruce the shark. Jaws, the classic, was the first movie I saw, obviously as a kid. But I really started watching Jaws 4 probably when I was came out in 1987. So I was probably about, 10 or 11 years old when I first saw The Revenge. And I really fell in love with it, man. I think it was the most fun Jaws out of all the series. It's goofy, but it has that almost dark sense to where it's personal. Overall, it's one of my favorite. It is my favorite Jaws movie, actually. I mean, compared to part 1.
Okay, and also returning from a couple of different episodes, you've seen him on the Romero episode. He was also on the Horror One Hit Wonders episode. We have coming back to the show is Sean. Sean, welcome back. It's good to see you again. How did you feel about this shark in the Bahamas?
I just can't. Just everything about it is just so stupid to me. And I just think the shark looks the worst that it's ever looked. To me, the ultimate sin of this movie is there's a roaring shark and multiple shots of the shark roaring. And then the ending is so confusing. I don't even remember what I saw in the theaters. I've seen both endings so many times that I can't remember which is the one I saw, whether it got impaled or whether it blew up. Jaws 4 isn't the worst movie I've ever seen. It's not even close to the worst movie I've ever seen. One of the worst movies I've ever seen, as I said, was that Day of the Dead remake by Steve Miner. That to me was the worst of that bunch. But I can get probably more entertainment from watching Jaws 4
again because it's so ridiculous.
Moving on to our number 5 movie. At number 5 with 376 points, because all of our rankings here so far have all been pretty close to each other. But we have Halloween Resurrection. It was ranked dead last on this list twice, and its highest ranking that it got was first place, which it got 5 times here. You and I ranked it decently. I ranked it in 5th place, which is where it landed, and you ranked it in 4th, a little bit higher. So you enjoyed this one.
Yeah, I don't think, and if I remember correctly, on our Halloween franchise episode, I did not rank this dead last. It is not my least favorite Halloween movie. I think there are many Halloween movies that are worse than Resurrection, or at least less enjoyable to watch. I kind of get a kick out of whatever the hell's going on in Halloween Resurrection. It is an attempt to just sort of plug Michael Myers into a different storyline where he's just stalking people who are just hanging out in the Myers house with cameras. And by all accounts, it's not a good movie at all. But I would rather watch Halloween Resurrection than Halloween H2O or either of the Rob Zombie remakes. Busta Rhymes doesn't hurt, and he karate kicks him out of a window, which I think is, worth not being dead last for. Just my take.
It feels way more like just a typical kind of goofy slasher flick, which is fine. It doesn't feel anything like a Halloween movie, which
Not at all.
I understand that's why that's a lot of reasons to not really enjoy it in terms of that. But I do think that it's more watchable than, yes, some of the other entries. I did not rank for this one to be as my dead last on the Halloween episode either. It's one I felt didn't necessarily deserve to be on the on that list. I will say that if Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 was ranked dead last on that episode, I would have ranked it dead last here also. So that's one that escaped there. But I mean, there's just enough silliness in this movie that I don't mind watching it because it's goofy. And yeah, if you've got karate kicks and Busta Rhymes and Happy Halloween, Mike, it's like, all right. You know who else enjoys Busta Rhymes karate kicking people out windows is Christy, who is coming back at us from the comfort of upstairs. Christy, you actually thoroughly enjoyed watching this one, did you not?
I did. I think it's a lot of fun. I mean, I totally get why people don't like it. I mean, it barely even feels like a Halloween movie. Just the whole reality show thing, it's just such an odd concept. And, they have Tyra Banks and then you don't even get to see her kill. It's like so disappointing. But then it taught me that I really like Busta Rhymes, and I'm happy that he karate kicked his way through the ending of that movie. But yeah, it's totally fun. So, there you go.
Okay, and then for another opinion on this movie, let's go all the way up to Canada. And let's go check out Josh Weaver from Camp Blood Media. Josh, it does not look to be Canada where you are at. That looks way too gorgeous. And how did you feel about Halloween Resurrection?
Thanks for having me on again, Josh. I have such a love-hate relationship with this movie, and I have to say it's mostly hate. I ranked it in 2nd place for my ranking just because of all of the other movies on the list I would definitely have below it. I couldn't put them any higher than they were. But the thing for me that kind of makes me the most mad about Halloween Resurrection is the beginning. I find that utterly disrespectful to the character of Laurie Strode. Like, she deserves so much more than that. As somebody who went through the events of Halloween 1, Halloween 2, and Halloween H2O, to just die like that in the opening credits is just like, that's what makes me hate this movie. But if that wasn't in the movie, if you just took that out, I actually don't have a big problem with all the dangertainment stuff and the actual plot of the movie. I like that it takes it in a different direction from the other Halloween movies, even though, like I said, it was utterly disrespectful to Laurie in the beginning. And I think that she should have came in at the end to save everybody, not Busta Rhymes. I do like the Sarah Deckard relationship that's in the movie and the way that plays out.
All right, moving on to number 6 as we round out the top half of our list. Here's one that I'm also disappointed that it's this low on this list. Is 418 points is Elves, which was ranked dead last here 3 times, and its highest ranking was first place, which it was ranked 5 times, and I ranked it in 3rd place. But Derek, you were one of those people that gave it your number 1.
I did, and I'm glad that 4 other people also agreed that Elves should be number 1 on this list. And that was a movie that, if anybody remembers that Christmas episode, I was thoroughly shocked and confused and a little angry that it was dead last on that list. When you said that out the gate, I was like, what? That movie is so fun to watch. That movie, is it not? It's got that perfect concoction of low budget, maybe shot on video, direct to video, AIP magic that's going on in Elves. It's got Nazis, it's got a bad little puppet, and it has weird sexual innuendo from department store Santas. And I think, for my money, that makes for an enjoyable, if not Christmas movie, then just a fun horror movie. I don't know, but maybe my proclivities are different than others, perhaps.
I ranked this pretty high as well, too. I got this in 3rd place. This was one that I was very, very bummed out was on the dead last for its particular episode. And honestly, I would have had it higher up on this list if it weren't for the middle of it, because I think that Elves starts off really strong. It's so much fun and silly, and it ends with just some great hysterical weird badness. The middle of it is a little bit sluggish, and I think that's the only thing that probably drags it down a little bit. I don't see how you could be mad at it. It's just it's a movie about a killer elf Nazi experiment with incest and craziness happening, and it's just really strange and fun and enjoyable. And hey, someone else who enjoyed it very much is Dan from the 4 Mood Groups, who is one of the patrons and it also appeared on our January episode. Dan, this was your number 1 as well.
I love Elves. However, it is important to note that this is a list of movies that were ranked dead last in their respective months. So I'm going to pull that punch just a little bit, but I do like Elves. You have to tell yourself this is kind of garbage absurdity. But the reason why that works for me is because I'm a huge Frank Henenlotter fan, and it really reads just silly. There's really nothing about the movie that can be taken seriously, in my opinion. That's the challenge when you're watching these really terrible horror movies. You're like, wait a second, is this intentionally garbage? The mother character is one of the worst non-villain villains in a movie, right? I mean, she is like so unlikable. And her death scene, again, while ridiculous, is great because you're just waiting for it. Horror movies are great at delivering on death scenes to deserving characters. This movie is reviled and considered like one of the worst movies ever by some. I'm like, you're not looking very hard if you think this is one of the worst movies ever, because I have seen some stuff that you've covered, Josh, on movie timelines that make this look like it could be like an Oscar outlier.
All right, and now, coming back again, you've seen him several times on the channel. You saw him on the Jaws ranking, and you've seen him as a tiebreaker once or twice. But coming back to talk about the movie is my good friend Jeremy. Jeremy, how do you feel about Elves, Jer?
What's not to love about Elves? Let's see. Christmas, a very sleepy, chain-smoking Grizzly Adams that probably needs some cocaine. Pedophile Santa, a creepy incest family, Nazis, of course the Nazis, and Elves. Well, actually, I guess that's a lot not to love about Elves, including that's about as animated as Elves get. But no, seriously, man, I had a ball watching it again. But man, what were they thinking?
All right, moving on to the bottom half of the list now, getting into the darker side of things. At number 7 with 431 points is The Nightmare on Elm Street remake from 2010, which was ranked dead last here 6 times, but its highest ranking it got was first place, which it also got 6 times, so an even split there. Derek, you and I both had pretty low opinions on this, although I gave it 8th place, which is pretty low. It's lower than it ended up, but you gave it dead last, so you do not care for this one.
No, I hate the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. I think I made myself perfectly clear on the Nightmare on Elm Street episode as to why I dislike this. I think it works. I don't like horror remakes to begin with, especially of 80s icons that I hold near and dear. But I think it works with somebody like Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees, where you just slap a mask on any dude and kind of feel like you're watching one of their movies. I think you're in a different sort of territory with Freddy Krueger in that Robert Englund brings so much to that character that to recast him with a guy I like, it's more about how much you enjoy watching the film, or at least how much I enjoy watching the film versus, whether it's of quality. Like, oh, does it look nice? Is the acting good? And I don't think this movie looks particularly nice and the acting's all that great, but I don't think it's the worst produced film on this list. It's just the film that makes me the angriest. And to hell with this movie. Dead last. That's my thoughts.
I feel like it's kind of a nothing of a movie. Like, it's just you have this big rich mythos of the Nightmare on Elm Street series, and you kind of avoid all of it. And I said this in the episode, and I'll stick by it. The only thing I think that would have possibly saved this movie is if they had pulled the trigger and had it that Freddy was innocent in the first place, giving the character an actual reason for revenge. That may have been the thing that saved it for me, but I also think that Freddy was just kind of dull. He didn't really do too much interesting, and I get that they were trying to make him scary again, which I'm fine with. I'm fine with making Freddy scary again, but unfortunately, it didn't come off that way. It just came off as Freddy being boring. Who doesn't hate this one is my good friend Vic. Vic is one of the patrons on patreon.com, and he's actually the host of the fantastic YouTube channel, The Horror Movie Syllabus, which I recommend going to right now. But Vic, you actually ranked this as your 2nd place on this list, so I think you have to defend it.
So thanks for having me, Josh, and thanks, sir, for being so supportive of the channel. I really appreciate it. I'm not sure I should thank you for having me talk about this movie, simply because everybody hates this movie. I think when I sent the email to you with the rankings for Dead Last, that I made a joke that only 6 people like this movie, and I'm one of them. And I think I might have overshot that a little bit. I think there's less than 6 people. It's a remake of Nightmare on Elm Street. It's a dark remake of Nightmare on Elm Street, which in itself is a dark movie. And I think what people really wanted was a remake of Dream Warriors, or at least they wanted the Freddy from Dream Warriors, which is not the same as the Freddy from Nightmare on Elm Street. So I think that was one big reason why people viscerally reacted negatively to the movie. That's not the Freddy they think of, but it is the Freddy I think of. So it didn't have that same effect for me. I understand why people hate it. That didn't have the same impact on me as it did for other people. I didn't miss the wisecracks and the jokes. So that's my defense of it. Weak as it may be, please don't unsubscribe from my channel.
All right. So next up, talking about the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. You've seen him on several episodes before, coming back at us again. It is, I don't know if we've called you the perfect meatball on this show yet, but I'm doing it now. It is Matt coming back. Matt, how did you feel about the Freddy remake?
To this day, it still remains one of the worst theater experiences I've ever had. I remember working with Mikey Rotella at ADI, and our friend, who will remain nameless, said, "Oh, you got to see the remake. It's so good. Oh, we're going to go after work." So we go after work, and I'm sitting in the seat just furious at him. Like, I've never been so mad at a movie before. I absolutely hate it. It lacks all the tension, suspense. There's literally one set that Freddy has. It's like this crappy boiler room set where he apparently just takes everyone. There's no like sense that he's ever in a dream world. The CGI is garbage. Nancy is pathetic in this movie. They steal from the Treehouse of Horror Simpsons episode. I mean, what more do you need? I mean, there's even a scene where him raking leaves. God, I hate this movie. I hate it so much. I can't take it.
All right, moving down to number 8 now. Number 8 is a movie that was recently talked about with 540 points. It's Snoop Dogg's Hood of Horror, which was ranked dead last on this list 7 times. Its highest ranking that it got was 2nd place. So that's actually the first movie that we're talking about today that no one ranked it in first. I gave it decent. I gave it 6th place, and Derek, you ranked it a little bit higher with 5th place. So you found some redeeming values here.
Yeah, I actually thought this was a fairly enjoyable anthology that I watched specifically for this month. I had not seen Hood of Horror previous to this. I thought the stories, particularly the one with Ernie Hudson, where the Vietnam vets all live in the apartment complex, and a really racist cowboy guy comes in. Like, that story is just great. That's a great anthology segment, and I think it really elevates the rest of what's going on. I doubt I'll rewatch it that much, but it has in it a great song called Welcome to the Hood of Horror, sung by Snoop Dogg as a sweet song over the end credits. That's a big plus for me anytime that happens. So I will rank Hood of Horror a little bit higher just for that alone. Give me a song like that, and we're doing a lot better over here, that's for sure.
I don't really care for Hood of Horror. It's not something I would really rewatch. But if somebody was like, hey, sit down and rewatch this, you don't have a choice, I wouldn't be too angry about it. I mean, it's fine. Enough stuff happens to keep you occupied. There's enough really top shelf acting in this movie. From, like, you got enough people of note. I mean, you got Ernie Hudson popping in there. You know, you've got Billy D. Williams popping in for a minute. You've got Lin Shaye coming around. You know, so there is like some things that you can enjoy out of this flick. Overall, I don't really think it works, and yeah, I mean, it's not certainly high up on my list, and it's one of those ones I just don't have much to defend, but I really don't have much to tear down either. But you know who does have some things to tear down about it is my brand new patron, Travis. Travis, this is the first time on the show, and actually very new to the channel. Travis, you hated this. You gave this your dead last.
Yeah, I hate Snoop Dogg's Hood of Horror. I think that it's the only movie I've ever been watching with my girlfriend where I yelled at the TV, just end, like, just be over. Like, I hate this movie. And I think it comes down to a little rule I have about horror movies, is that you're allowed to be bad. I like bad horror movies. I put Jaws the Revenge pretty high on my list. I put Elves. Like, you can be entertainingly bad, but don't be boring. This movie just doesn't make sense. It's drawn out and padded and boring. And I was literally sitting here before, like, we got on Zoom thinking, like, what am I going to say about this movie? And it's like, I don't have that much to say, because it's nothing. It's just a nothing movie. There's just nothing to it. I just feel like Snoop Dogg got his friends together and they made a bad movie and they tried to make money off of it.
Now, coming up next with a slightly better opinion, coming back to the channel, is Shannon. Shannon is also a patron and was also in the January Horror Best of 2020. Shannon, you still didn't like this, though. You had it in 10th place, so not a lot of love for the Hood of Horror.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Josh. Yeah, it was definitely lower on my list. I think I didn't put it dead last because I actually had fun watching it. Pretty much anything with Snoop Dogg is just kind of fun. Also, the illustrated portions of it, the comic book kind of intro that kind of made it similar, or comic book pieces that made it similar to, you know, Tales from the Crypt or Creepshow. I think the reason I didn't rank it any higher is the acting kind of ranged from pretty good, because you have like Ernie Hudson and some other people in there, to really bad. I mean, some of this are just absolutely horrible. And I was just sitting there going, oh my gosh. But I think it was just kind of overall fun and campy. And so I really enjoyed that. Pacing and just the variability of the acting were the biggest reasons I couldn't put it higher.
All right, getting closer to the bottom now at ninth place. In ninth place with 597 points, we have 2020's The Turning. That's right, it was ranked dead last 9 times, and its highest ranking that it got was first place. 2 people did rank it in first. Derek and I, we both had it pretty low. You had it in ninth place. I had it in 10th. I had it pretty low because there's a certain category of movie for me that are just like throwaway movies where after you're done watching them, like 2 days later, you completely forget that you even watched them in the first place. Like, nothing about The Turning stands out to me. I did this in January, and I don't really remember watching it. I could probably tell you 3 things that happened in the movie at this point. Like, that's how little it made an impact on me. Sadly enough, the thing that's most memorable about the movie to me is the fact that the big money shot of the trailer, which was a spider crawling out of the kid's mouth, is not in the movie, and that's the thing I remember the most about it. So I ranked this pretty low just because it left no impact on me.
I thought the girl was good, the actress, I think she does a fine job of trying to hold that movie together. I think there's enough whatever going on where you could kind of just, like, it didn't piss me off watching The Turning. I wasn't like mad like Slender Man where I'm like, this movie is making me angry while I'm watching it. Like, I didn't get that experience from The Turning. I think it looks fine. It's I don't know. I don't want to say it's a competent picture because I don't actually think it's all that competent of a photo or of a film, but you're right. It's like total like throwaway. Like you feel as though something could have been made out of this, reimagining of Turn of the Screw. And it just doesn't do anything with it, which is sort of a disappointment. Who cares about this movie? Who remembers this movie? I don't. I will never think about this movie ever again past this episode probably, and that's just fine with me.
Well, someone else that does not care about it, because he ranked it in 11th place, is another patron, Ryan Hill from Hill House Productions on YouTube. You can go to that channel as well too. Ryan, you also did not care for this one because you gave it your 11th place spot.
Okay, well, in hindsight, I probably should have watched this before I watched The Haunting of Bly Manor. It's just no comparison at all. And the director, I think this is her first movie in like 10 years after directing The Runaways, which is awesome. And then she made this, and I'm baffled. I don't remember a lot of this movie. I remember bits and pieces. I remember Finn Wolfhard was decent. And then you get all the way through, and it's like they forgot to tag on an ending. Waste of everyone's talent.
That being said, here is someone that does care about The Turning, because Heather, you ranked this number 1. Heather is a patron as well, brand new to the channel. This is the first time on the show. You ranked this number 1, so obviously you did watch The Turning and found it to be a better experience than not watching it. So tell us what you loved here.
This is the only one that I wouldn't have been embarrassed being involved in. Like, if somebody asked me if I was in this movie or had something to do with it, I'd be like, yeah, it's not great, but yeah, I was. I'm kind of gothy, and it ticked a lot of the gothy boxes for me. It had the location, the music, the clothing. It just looked really good. But also, and I know it gets a lot of criticism for not being scary, but it's really not something that's meant to scare us. You're supposed to watch her be scared. And I thought that the actress, she really did a good job with that.
Coming in at number 10 now with 603 points is a movie that I don't feel deserved to be dead last on its list, was Day of the Dead Bloodlines, which was ranked dead last here 11 times. But the highest ranking that it got was first place. 2 people did rank it in first place. although you and I were not either of those people. I ranked it in 9th place here, and you gave it 8th. It sort of feels like a remake, I guess, of Day of the Dead in a way. I guess enough to use that title. It's sort of there. But the reason why Romero movies stick out so much, and I feel as if anybody that ever remakes a Romero movie seems to miss this, is the Romero movies aren't necessarily about the zombies. The later ones are, but the earlier films are not about the zombies. They're about the characters. It's a movie about the characters first and seeing how they survive in a world full of zombies. And I feel like anytime anybody remakes a movie, they just make it about the zombies. And it just ends up being a total washout. So, yeah, ultimately for me, this one, although I do feel as if it didn't deserve Dead Last on its list, that's not saying much.
It has some fun gore in it. I will say that. Some of the makeup effects and some of the gore effects are enjoyable enough. You feel like you're watching a zombie movie, you feel like you're watching a horror movie, and you don't necessarily feel like you're watching one that's just been kind of caked in CGI, like a lot of the newer zombie movies. That being said, I didn't enjoy Day of the Dead Bloodline. I will never watch Day of the Dead Bloodline again. If you're gonna remake Day of the Dead, do a better job than this. But that being said, I think there's less enjoyable movies on this list than me. You said I gave it 8. Yeah, why not?
Coming up next is Sarah. Sarah, you have recently appeared on our episode about the horror anthologies. So welcome back, and a patron of the show as well too. You ranked this in 11th place, so clearly not much love here.
Dear Lord, what did you make me watch? I mean, this was bad. This was so very, very bad. Why did the world need a zombie rapist? Didn't need to happen. Not sure what it added to that character so much as it was like they just decided we need to give this guy some sort of a story so that he works into the whole plot line, and it just was the worst possible decision in my opinion. I give kudos to the guy playing the part. He was creepy as hell. I was like, yeah, stay far away from me. Do not like this film. Really don't.
And for the final word on this movie, let's go now to one of my favorite voices on the Zoom calls is your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete. Uncle Pete, you did not care for this in the tiniest bit because this was your dead last. What did you hate about this one?
This movie was so unoriginal, so boring. If you want to call it acting, I thought I was watching one of the Return of the Living Dead sequels that was filmed in Romania with people trying to fake American accents. And the directing, the script writing, I kept thinking, this is how people in other countries think. It was like the whole movie was a cliche. We have to go out and get the medicine for this sick little girl. We have to risk everybody's lives, and one person doesn't come back. With the weasel officer in charge, it was just so unoriginal, been done 1,000 times. Everybody who acted in the movie learned how to act by watching American movies and TV. And I felt the same way about the script. They watched a bunch of zombie movies and just picked and chose, and we just made a big cliche, boring movie. It was no redeeming qualities in this. It was just a waste of my time.
All right, things are getting worse as we move on to 11th place, almost near the bottom of this list. Very few movies left in contention. But with 634 points, we have Leprechaun Origins, which was ranked dead last here 14 times. And its highest ranking that it got was 3rd place. No one's given this first. You and I both ranked it pretty low. You gave it 10th place. I gave it 11th place. Derek, how do you feel about Leprechaun Origins?
I don't even know how I feel about Leprechaun Origins because I don't remember a damn thing about Leprechaun Origins. We watched it, in February of this year for that episode. And dude, I don't even, I just remember that you barely see the Leprechaun. He's terrible when you see him. And you just didn't think, it just is so far from a Leprechaun movie that I'm like, why are we calling this Leprechaun? Why am I including this in a viewing of other Leprechaun films? This thing just seems out of place. And as far as a remake goes, like, I guess, it doesn't piss me off as much as Nightmare on Elm Street or Day of the Dead, because for my money, you're not even remaking a Leprechaun movie here. You're just doing something else and calling it Leprechaun Origins to what? I don't know. Sell it? Maybe? I don't know. This movie's terrible. I don't remember anything about this movie. 11. I don't care.
I think Mikey on the episode said something about if this was by any other name, it would not be as terrible. And I completely disagree, because I feel as if this movie is just, I feel like if this movie had any other name, it would still be just as bad. It just wouldn't have gotten as much attention. The only thing that kept this from my dead last ranking is the movie that I had as dead last versus this one. This movie had one scene that I remember, and it's the axe to the face. And the axe to the face is the only thing that was just like, that was kind of cool. And with the exception of that, there's nothing about this that stands out in any way, shape, or form. It's just, again, I know I've said this about other things on here, it's a nothing of a movie. You know who else gave it 11th place? Is my good friend Mike, who's a patron, and he's also up in Canada. We're going up to Canada again, crossing that border to find out just how much people hate Leprechaun Origins. Mike,
I hope he remembers it more.
I know, Mike. Do you remember? Do you remember what do you remember about Leprechaun Origins? Hopefully, it's more than us, because you gave it 11th place.
Oh, dearie me, what to say about this movie? To be honest, like it sucks. It really sucks. Not only is it a dreadful movie, it's a dreadful Leprechaun movie, but I don't even see it as part of the franchise, even though it's a part of my Leprechaun box set, my Blu-ray box set. And I just don't understand what it's doing. Is it a reboot? Is it doing its own thing now? What is it doing exactly? And the creature is terrible, absolutely terrible in my opinion. They blur it out every chance they get. When you do see it, if they're not resorting to that terrible POV of the creature. But the scariest thing about this movie for me was that at the very end it hinted at another one.
For a slightly different opinion, and by slightly different, I mean I think he hates it maybe 5% less than us, let's go to Florida with the star of The Complex, my feature film. You've seen him in a couple episodes now, and it's Clay. Clay, welcome back. And man, I know you did not care for this either. How do you feel about Leprechaun Origins?
Okay, so let's just jump right into this. The movie could have been somewhat okay as a teenager. We're off on our Ireland adventure and some monster or some murderer was attacking us. It would have been okay. You know what saves this movie from being like the worst piece of crap I've ever seen is the fact that the actors are not terrible. The acting is not terrible, except for the Leprechaun, who when I do my IMDb stuff, and the actor who is a wrestler with WWE, I guess, he said that he had never seen any of the Leprechaun films and still has not, because he did not want to dilute his performance. Let me say that again. He did not view the other Leprechaun movies because he did not want to dilute his performance of non-talking, non-anything. Overall, it is absolutely a terrible film, but if it had been a different monster, if it had been a different situation, the movie could have been good. They just decided to make it the wrong reboot or the wrong monster.
And here it is, the DeadLastDeadLast. This is the worst movie of the year out of all of our rankings, with 681 points. We've got Slender Man. It was ranked dead last 12 times, oddly enough, not the movie with the highest number of dead last rankings, but its highest ranking it got was 3rd place. Derek, you had this ranked in 11th place. I gave it my dead last, and I gave it my dead last for much of the same reasons we've been talking about 2001. I don't remember anything about this movie. I don't remember a single thing that happened. I don't remember any characters. I don't even remember how the characters died. I think I remember a girl being melted into a tree. I think that's in my head. I think that's this movie. It may have been another one, but there's nothing. And we just watched this a couple of months ago. That was like, what, 3 months ago? I mean, I should be able to remember a single detail of a movie that I watched 3 months ago, and I don't. There's nothing about this. I don't remember one thing about this, so therefore, dead last deserves it. How do you feel? You have an 11th place. It's not your dead last.
Nobody wants this movie to begin with, but the people that do want it don't want this version of it. So I'm not sure exactly who are you catering this film to? What is the audience for this movie at that point? I don't think anybody likes this movie. Like you said, 600 and something votes out of a possible 800? That seems like a mandate, like make this the dead last of the dead last. I have no problem with this movie being dead last on this list. It wasn't my personal dead last, but I had it in 11th place. I don't like this movie. I don't think you should like this movie. I don't think you should watch this movie. I think this movie should just go into a bin somewhere and just be forgotten. Maybe in 20 years, it'll be sort of an interesting relic of this time period where people were like, like, wasn't this, cute and novel? But other than that, just, burn this thing. Another one for the fire, gentlemen. Get rid of Slender Man.
You know who else has a very low opinion of this one is my friend and patron, Tom. Tom, you have this ranked very low. You were also on our Horror Best of 2020 episode. It's good to see you back for this one. Welcome back, and tell us, you had this ranked in 11th place, not your dead last, but really low. How do you feel about the man of Slender?
Yeah, so thank you again for having me back. Slender Man was an interesting choice because I've watched it 3 times now. And one of those times was actually last night to just really have it fresh in my mind. These are the most boring characters I have ever seen. None of them are interesting. They're very stock characters. They don't use the concept of Slender Man very effectively. He's not really mysterious as much as he's just kind of like, oh, okay, guy in a suit, no face. I mean, I think it commits the biggest crime of a horror movie that horror movies can commit. It's just boring.
All right, and then now for our next guest, talking about Slender Man. I'm not quite sure. I don't have this person does not have a name here. I don't know who our next guest is. Let's take a look. You. All right. What did you think about Slender Man?
Slender Man is better than Jaws.
All right, that's enough of that. Let's click that off. And there you have it. So there you have it. It is 12 movies, the worst of the year, the dead last of dead lasts. Every year of this show will end with this. We'll go find out which is the dead last, and then maybe when the show's 10 years old, we'll take all the dead last, and put them up against each other and really hate ourselves. Nice. But there you go. When I take a look at this roster here, I feel pretty good about this. I feel like this is all pretty appropriate, and I'm not mad about this. Let's take a peek at our roster here. Nothing about here stands out as being like that does not deserve to be there, or blah blah blah.
Hats off to all the people that watched these 12 movies specifically for this list. I think that shows a bit of commitment to this idea. And not everybody kind of wants to sit through terrible movies. And I want to sit through certain kinds of terrible movies. And most of these are not the terrible movies that I want to sit through.
Well, for the inverse of that, what I also did was we took all of the number 1 movies of the year. And I just asked you guys to tell me which of those was your favorite. So a whole bunch of people all voted. And the number 1 movie of the year with the most votes. 14 people voted for Dawn of the Dead as the best movie of these rankings. Here, take a look at it. These are how many people. Interestingly enough, every single movie got at least one vote. So one person's favorite movie of the year was Leprechaun 3, and one person's was Invisible Man. So definitely every single movie is represented, but ultimately Dawn of the Dead takes the crown. And I'm not, even though it wasn't what I voted for my number one, I'm not mad about that. I can't complain. Yeah.
Dawn of the Dead is a great horror movie. It wasn't what I voted for. As one might imagine, watching 12 or so episodes, or however many episodes that I was in, you could probably imagine that Halloween was my choice. Came in second place, did respectable. What did you say, 12? 12 people voted for?
12 people for Halloween.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
Well, all right, so there it is. That wraps up our first season of Dead Last. We'll be back next month for the first episode of the new season, kicking off a new year of movies from Best to Dead Last. I want to thank you guys for joining me on this. I want to thank my patrons for those who actually participated in the rankings here and also appeared on the episode, and for all you guys to just continue to keep watching the show. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much for doing so. Derek, I want to thank you for coming back on again, taking time out of your busy schedule. I know that you are working some crazy days right now.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we do work a lot, but yeah, no, it's always fun to come on here. At least for me. I don't know if it's fun for your viewers, but it's always fun for me to come on here and talk about these movies. So I enjoy it, and thank you for having me on so many.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you again very shortly for another great episode, and see you then. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.